Welcome to my talk, Conflict is Information. I'm Dave Sparks, that's Dave Sparks on Drupal.org and generally everywhere else. If you do Google me, don't make the mistake of thinking that I'm Heavy D Diesel Sparks, the vehicle modification enthusiast in the United States. I sometimes get questions for him on Twitter. Welcome to my talk today, Conflict is Information. We'll begin by saying hello. I'll explain a little bit what I mean by conflict is information. Then it's a talk in three parts. Perhaps more like a conversation in three parts. I hope you find it useful. I hope you find it enjoyable. And thanks for coming. I now have you at hello. So you have probably seen me around the conference. You may know me as part of the Drupal South Committee. And in my spare time, I run a web company called Sparks Interactive, very imaginatively titled, where we do Drupal. I'm here using the sector distribution. And just a quick shout out to the sector team, who have done a very good job over the last 10 years with that and led us to a silver medal in the Open Source Awards category for the Splash Awards last night. And thanks, you're responsible for my mild over this one. So I'm Dave Sparks. Who do we have here today? Who in the room is a Drupal developer? Any developers? Woo, yes. UX design, any UX design people? Nice. Project management, product management? Yeah, cool, nice. Client service, looking after the peoples? Yeah, doing all that. We're all in client service, aren't we, really, end of the day? Anyone here is a client doer, like a dev or a designer on the client side? Oh yeah, a little bit, yep. Any senior decision makers in charge of large budgets here today? Yeah, come and see me after. Any other roles I missed? Any weirdos in the room? Well, we're all weirdos. So this is kind of a personal talk, grounded in my professional experience, but it's quite personal. I went through this thinking about, what are you saying? What do you want to say? How are you going to say that? And everything is kind of viewed through my personal experience in a professional context. So I thought I'd start by introducing a bit of background. This is me. I got online in 1993, thanks to my first grown-up job, where I ended up working full-time at a university. I remember one day I was wandering around the internet and I followed a link, a hypertext link, to Mosaic 0.98b, and I thought, holy shit, this is what I've been reading about all my life. This is going to change the world. The magic of publishing things on the internet has never gone away from me. I'm not a developer. I'm just someone who can type. I'm not very well, but I can type. And hit save. Sometimes, with the help of my friends, I do a bit of pointy bracket poetry, but mostly not even that these days. And I think that doing customer support content updates is probably the favorite part of my job. And I still do that from time to time, stay hands-on. Since 1993, I've spent as much time online as possible. It turns out that can be quite a lot. It's good, but it's good. It's good, being extremely online. Eventually it turned out that everybody likes being online all the time. And today I'm still online as much as possible. I've been making websites since 1997, still doing that. I started Sparks Interactive in 2005. I'm still doing that. Lately I've been busy with the Drupal South Committee, still doing that. And way back before all that started, I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Politics from the University of Otago, who also gave me my first job. Now, I'm not still doing that. Not doing politics. Wasn't really into doing that at the time, to be perfectly honest. I was more into hanging out with my friends and playing records. And yes, I am still doing that. Now, that's my office in Auckland, and some of the records that I've collected over the last 40 years. If you're in town on a Friday afternoon, we normally have a few drinks. Drop by, hang out, and we can play a few of them. Open invite. Well, that's enough for me for now. Conflict is information. Does anyone here encounter conflict in their day-to-day work? Anyone encounter conflict? Yeah. Anyone never encounter conflict? Anyone never encounter it? Hands down. Who likes conflict? Who likes it? Yeah, that's fair. Who hates conflict? Yeah. Who runs from conflict? I can't say that I am its biggest fan, but it always seems to come and find me. I think in the latter part of my career, good news never travels as far as me. Bad news, all the way. But what do I mean? What do I mean by conflict as information? What's the point of this whole thing? When I talk about conflict, I do mean this, right? We're in the problem-solving business. Often, there's differences between people and how best to solve a problem. I'm sure you've experienced that. The competing interests around the amount of time and especially the amount of money required to do this, right? And whether you're sitting on the vendor side, the client side, disagreements can quite often persist around the relative importance of those factors. What are the priority of outcomes? Who gets what, right? It's fairly common that different people want different things or have different understandings of things. And this can lead to conflict. Might be within your team, between client and vendor, across communities, open source communities, or online, online conflict. It can be small stuff, it can be big stuff. It's sometimes upsetting, sometimes upsetting, and different people have widely varying responses to conflict situations. Conflict is pretty common, right? A lot of people put their hands up, yeah? People are wonderful things, complex, contradictory, and common. We are everywhere. When I signed up to study politics, it turns out that I was just studying people. In Pols 101, I learned that it is all about who gets what, when, and how. That was my first lecture, first day. They said it is who gets what, when, and how. That is the root of our social system. So what I'm going to talk about today is through a lens of anthropological and socio-economic drivers that combine to form a repeating pattern of events. Someone wants something, they're not getting it, conflict. Conflict often feels personal. Sometimes it feels directed against you in the workplace. Important disclaimer though, and I want to make this pretty clear. I'm not a conflict resolution specialist. I'm not a trained mental health professional. I'm not an interpersonal mediator. I'm just a guy who makes websites. This talk does not address violence, bullying, or mental duress, and none of which should be present in the workplace. Never. That is my firm belief. You have the right to be safe, and if you don't feel safe, you have the right to help and the right to leave. And I've left unsafe situations plenty of times in the past. So what I mean by conflict is information. What am I talking about? It's a way that I use to think about conflict, to put conflict in its place, to create some professional distance from what can feel like a personal situation, especially a situation that may be unhappy, accusatory, sometimes angry. People say, you did this, you didn't do that. Now there's more problems. We're supposed to be solving problems. You're making more problems. You might be the problem. And when it's that situation, right, it can be hard to listen when the message turns negative. But listening is the best road I know, the best way to get out of a situation. Conflict as information means that when people are upset, usually they will tell you why, especially if you ask them. Sometimes they'll tell you why too directly and too emotionally, but you need to buckle down and listen to that. You need that information. You need to listen to them. Conflict as information means that when people are blocking your path or trying to take the ground out from under your feet, ever experienced that? Bit of nods, yep. You need to find out why, and not just why they're doing that or why they think they're doing that, but why they think they should do that or why they think they can do that. You need that information. You need to learn, yeah? Conflict as information means that sometimes the way out of conflict means going through more conflict because you don't know enough yet, they haven't had their say enough yet. You need to learn more, you need to listen more, you need to do better in that situation. But how do we do that? How do we do that? I'm going to tell you how I do that, and let's see how we go. I'm going to give you my personal 3-part program on handling conflict as information. To put conflict in its place, create a professional path forward, and set limits to seek clarity. I hope this works for you. It's what's worked for me that I've learned the hard way. I like learning things the hard way. I like to repeat my mistakes over and over and over again until eventually it sinks in, right? But it's not my expectation or my intention or my wish even from this talk for you to do just as I do. This is my personal talk, this is my personal approach. People are complex, contradictory, and we are all different. We're all the same, but we're all different. If you disagree with me, great, fantastic. Listen, learn, and then do better by doing you. Take your own path to deconstructing and reformulating conflict in your approach to conflict. And so what I hope this talk does is give you a moment to pause and think, tools to do that. But before that, I thought we might listen to a record. Story goes. Owner of a Lonely Heart from 1983. It's the first track off Yes 90125. The first album I ever bought. Went halves with one of my brothers, Ben, and I still listen to it today. It's a vibe for sure, right? You know. The 80s was a time of working class struggle, the rise of the corporation, and the individual struggle for personal success. It was a wonderful time to be a teenager and a great time to start work. Part 1 of my conflict as information program is that work is work. Work is work. Work is work. Repeat that phrase. It hits in a few different ways. Work, one definition is the intentional application of effort, right? Work's not just hanging out with your friends and playing records. And I ended up with a job doing what I love with people I really like. But I'm not going to lie, it's pretty hard some days, right? Like everything else, you get back what you put in. I want a lot back. I'm a greedy man, so I put a lot in. I put a lot of expectations on myself and the workplace. It's supposed to be hard. That's why they call it work. Now, work is a place, right? This talk is about conflict in the workplace. And just, by the way, paid work is not the only form of work, right? Volunteer or collective work, they sure do come with their fair share of conflict, but they should also come with the expectation of a professional workplace. Work is a place that comes with expectations on behaviour and standards of conduct. It's also a place that you can leave at the end of the day, and it's healthy to do that. It's a mistake I made a lot. When I first got into this business, I loved it so much. I did it all the time, right? Late nights, all-nighters. It's where I found all my friends. I carried it through to all my socializing, where all we did was talk about work. But you don't have to be a poster child for burnout, right? To realize that a healthy attitude means that you can say work is work, and I'll leave it at work, and give yourself a break from the hard stuff. But perhaps most importantly for the purposes of this talk, work is the value you bring, right? Work is what you do to add value. And okay, so people are going to say, hey Dave, you're a boss. If you're an employer, you're an exploiter of labor. Of course you see work as the opportunity to extract value from others. But I wasn't always a boss. Before I started Sparks Interactive, I had a few other jobs. 10 jobs in 10 years actually. But before that, not long after I started buying records, I started working. I started earning money. I didn't wait until university to start grappling with economic theories of value and the exchange of labor. Through high school and university, I worked as a commercial cleaner. Vacuuming was my specialty. It's a fantastic job. Good at mopping as well. I am the chief mop officer in our household. It was my first job, and it was really good work if you could get it. It was always before and after hours, so it was easy to fit into a schedule. They had a really effective union, and they set a fair value on your time. And so their clients had to as well. They had little choice, right? Because if the cleaners go on strike, the hospitals close. Set a fair value on your time, right? There's a good lesson in that. So I've done a few different labouring jobs as well, in and around my website career. There's good money in shifting desks and loading trucks. Moving something from A to B is really quite satisfying. And it's good to know that with just like a little grunt work, you can take other people's problems away. In the really fun jobs, I was making something. I love making things. But in the jobs that I lasted the longest in, and where I think I did my best work, I was finding and paying other people to do all three of those things, right? Helping other people to do things is my best value add. I'm okay at making things, but I'm good at working with others. Other people, they make things so much better than I ever could. Working with others is a force multiplier for me, right? That is where my work delivers the most value. Work is the value you bring, it's the value you create, and ultimately that is the value that you own. Work is work. I encourage you take a moment, have a think about it, understand your work, the work that you do, the work that you want to do. Understand your work story. Look back at the work you've done, identify the things that you've found satisfying, had fun with, done well, added the most value. What are your force multipliers? Understand your story and where you add the most value, where you do your best work, right? Your best work is the best place to start resolving conflict. Start with your strengths. Start with your strengths and do your best. On to part 2. How am I going for time? My little timer didn't. All good? Time for one more record, perhaps. Something chill. It's amazing how long 45 seconds of drum and bass feels like when you're in a presentation. We truly are the TikTok generation. By 1996, I was living in the big city and I'd started working towards making websites. Actually, in those days, most of what I did was making PowerPoint presentations. Awesome stuff. It took me a wee while to actually get people to buy a website in those days. Talked to a large financial institution and said, you guys need a website. And they're like, why the fuck would we need a website? Anyway, in that job, a friend from London told my workmate about this new mix CD, DJ Kicks, Kruder and Dorfmeister. And as web-savvy people, we couldn't buy it in Auckland, but we did find the Studio K7 website. And I don't know if anyone in the room has ever considered this possibility, but on that website, you could buy online compact discs. They would send them from Berlin, Kaiser 7, to almost anywhere in the world, including New Zealand. Shipping looked pretty expensive though, so we thought we'd get a few CDs, maybe 10, maybe 12. Different CDs, you know, it's all good stuff to make it worthwhile, right? Bundle it up. Great music from The Office. It was a few €100, but hey, what the heck? You couldn't get these in New Zealand at the time. We'd go halves and share the collection. We hit submit, weren't quite on dial-up, but it wasn't much faster. The site hung up, so we hit submit again. This is a true story. When the bill hit Scott's credit card, it was $842 New Zealand for that order. Twice. But you know, 2 boxes of CDs showed up, so 2 of everything, fair's fair. $842 was pretty much my after-tax salary for a fortnight in those days. But to be honest, I have never regretted an online purchase less. CDs changed my life, loved them, still have them, still listen to them. A year later, everyone knew that DJ Kick CD. Anyone here listen to Kruder and Dorfmeister? Yeah. By 1998, you couldn't walk into a cafe in Auckland without hearing the K&D Sessions follow-up, double CD. But my favourite CD of theirs is their earlier work, Conversions, right? That was their first full-length mix CD that showcased the 10 tracks. They got these 10 white label 12-inch records that they played around Berlin, that established their reputation and put them on the map as a force for electronic music in the 90s. That's Cool, which we just listened to, is the opening track off that CD, and I think it's pretty cool. For the next 5 years after that, work was very stressful. I travelled a lot, I was on planes a lot, I commuted back and forth from Auckland to San Francisco a lot, but wherever I was in the world, I could put conversions in the player, put on my headphones and chill. That song is part of me. Part 2. You are you. Of all the situations you work in, all the times that you come into conflict, the person that you're going to see most of, in fact, you're probably going to see them there every time, is you. Recurring theme, common factor. Like any challenging activity, work offers many wonderful opportunities to learn something about yourself. And from a practical point of view, it is a really good idea to learn how you work, how others see you work. And understanding your work story, part 1, that's a great start on that. And if you can take that a step further and develop some sort of, ongoing self-awareness, dare I say it, you will be one step ahead of most people. Particularly when heading into a situation of conflict, and the stress response kicks in. I think probably everyone in this room has had the feeling of that "oh no" email. Everyone knows the "oh no" email. Yeah. You open, you read it, and you go, "Oh no" if you're a polite person. "Oh no, oh no, oh no, no, no." It's even worse when that happens in a meeting. These days we have the privilege and the fortunate position of online meetings. Worst of all when it happens in person, sitting across the table, you hear something, all the blood goes to your feet. Have you, anyone here ever wish they could turn the camera off in real life, right? Just disappear, sorry, connection's gone, dropping out. With some time, and perhaps by repeating mistakes, but with some time you can learn to recognize what makes you feel that way. What type of behavior coming the other way at you makes that feeling super hard to shake. We're problem solvers, right? We're in the problem solving business. That's what we are. We solve problems, gear up, get in, solve problems. So it's usually that "oh no" feeling is not just simply because there's a problem. We can handle problems, right? It's usually something more. If you understand your work story, you know what your drivers are. You know what your drivers are, and you also need to know what your triggers are. What makes you go, "oh no"? I know I'm primarily motivated by hanging out with nice people, doing cool things. I also like to feel good about myself sometimes. I like people to like me. I thrive and love praise and approval. I am a little puppy dog, and pats on the head are my favorite thing. Now I realize that's kind of hardly a unique set of drivers, right? It's fairly common. But everyone is different. Everyone is different. And so I don't assume that the same is always true of other people. I don't assume the same is true of you. And I don't assume the same is true of the person across the other side of the table. 5 minutes to go. Oh, really? I'm only halfway through. Oh, I have 45 minutes. Ooh. Okay, sometimes you meet other people and you realize, wow, being liked is really not important to you at all. Conflict is information, right? In a situation like this, someone wants something, they're not getting it. I know I like being liked. I know one of my most common conflict situations is the pressure to promise something, to promise to give people what they want, and I think that's pretty common. It's not just my trigger. When someone can't get what they want or need, often you'll be pressured to promise something in return. You know, if I can't get X, then I need Y. If I can't have it Friday, I need it first thing Monday. Anyone ever heard that? Yeah. Sometimes the suggestion is you just need to promise, or at least promise to try. Now, just promise to try, sometimes that's a friendly concession, right? And sometimes it's a deadly trap. Usually you don't find out which it is until too late. A promise to try can be an honest response, but it only resolves the conflict if it gets things done. Stalling tactics are a gamble, right? It's like a double or nothing deal. If it's not done, the conflict escalates, new problems, less credibility going into that situation. And I know me, I'm not much of a gambler. When I gamble, I usually lose. I will promise when I know it can be done. I don't promise if I don't know for sure. I never promise if it can't be done. I'll tell clients exactly that. And I say, I don't like to gamble with your project. I can try, but I can't promise anything. But we need to agree what will happen if that doesn't work. I use that conversation a lot. I've worked out these options in advance. I've learned that the hard way. I have that as an objective reply. It's a rational framework. It's not about them, it's not about me, it's not about the moment. It's about how we work together. It breaks down my response into logical steps. Now, this might be a useful example for you, it might not be. I tried to think of something personal that was broadly applicable in a professional setting. But this specific example is not the main point I'm trying to make. The point is that you are you. Think about what motivates you and what triggers you. Reflect upon regret and understand why bad things happen. Prepare a better answer for next time that happens. Establish your framework. How are you going to break this down? How are you going to respond in that oh no moment? You won't be able to think of something on the fly. You just need to get into it. It's better to have that pre-prepared answer. And the better answer is the one that gives you from the next step from failure. Mitigates against risk, gives you that next step. All you can be is you. That's who they hired. By looking back and then thinking ahead, you can learn and develop into a better you. Quickly, part 3. Clock's ticking. Probably time for one last record though. Yeah, I'll cut that short. Part 3, need is need. Now this is one of the most important questions in web development. Is this burning an eternal flame? Ask myself that all the time, right? Is this requirement a passing fancy, a temporary infatuation, or is it something we are going to commit to forever? You want it now, but will you still need it in a year? Are you going to pay to maintain it eternally? Modules aren't just for Christmas, right? For me, this is the best tool in the business. Need is need. Nothing cuts through clutter and simplifies work quite like it. But do you really need it? Can be a tricky question, especially in this world we live in of the must, should, and nice to have feature matrix. Anyone else wake up having nightmares about that question? Nice to have. Nice to haves are never nice to have. When someone wants something, it's usually a pretty hard job to tell them they're not getting it. They're not getting what they want. It's even harder trying to tell them they don't need it. I know you want it, you can't have it because, right? Always a fun conversation. Because usually the first question back will be, why not? And it's a really hard line to walk between giving reasons and making excuses. In a healthy relationship, a constructive conversation usually supports giving reasons. When things have moved into conflict, their perceptions easily tilt towards hearing excuses. And that can really spiral, right? Which you do not want. Don't spiral, right? You can't resolve conflict with conflict. If you're having a disagreement about whether something can be done, avoid moving the discussion to whether something should be done. It's probably my most controversial workplace opinion. You've got to resist that gravitational pull, right? From a practical point of view, if you're a doer, that is the first question, right? Do we need to do this? Do I really have to rock up and do this? If you get the answer no, case closed, move on. Another job ticked off, right? Ticket closed, forward email. But from the other side, it can really feel like withholding, right? The goal is now one step further away. Worse than that, the discussion we were having was what, when, and how, and that suddenly jumped to, are we even doing this? No one likes having their toys taken away. And especially the wants, the nice to haves, are usually a lot more fun than the needs. To change perception and to try and avoid taking a turn for the worse, this is another opportunity to listen more and learn more. If you want to dig into the need as need, you have to establish what that need is and then what the need behind that need is. And the secret to making this a constructive conversation is to focus on the what, when, and how, and then ask the why. And these are my magic questions to start that process, right? What do you need? When do you need it by? How we can make that happen? What do you need? Why? Not why do you need that, but help me understand what is driving your need. Ask that question in an open and positive, constructive conversation. When do you need it by? Why? What makes that timeline important? How can we make that happen? Is your need what you think it is? Or often with websites, hey, magical answer, you can offer an alternative that meets that business requirement that's not that website feature requirement. Once you know the need behind the need, you can start to build alternatives that might meet that need and otherwise, move things forward. Is that too simple? Is that too simple an answer? When I was putting this talk together, I was shaking my head, thinking, Dave, you dick, that's too simple. People know this. It's even more obvious than you are you, right? It's this Hallmark card stuff. But when I think back, in all honesty, it took me a long time to learn this, to truly learn this, and even longer to remember to use it consistently in pressure situations. With conflict moving towards an escalation spiral, right? It's all very well knowing, but you have to remember to do. Action moves things forward, action resolves conflict. The really tricky problems don't solve themselves. If they did, people wouldn't need you. So, here we are. That's my 3-part program to dealing with conflict as information. If you can remember all the way back to 1991, I got a politics degree, and politics is about who gets what, when, and how. Most conflict is from people not getting what they want, and if you listen, they will tell you all about it. Listen. If you're in conflict, listen, get information. Work is work. Work is an exchange of labour for value. Know your value. Learn your work story to understand where you add the most value, where you do your best. Learn your strengths, lean into your strengths. You are you. Think about what motivates you. Think about how you react to stress and conflict, how you might manage that better. Think about when you're vulnerable to pressure and where you go wrong. I go wrong consistently in the same way over and over again. once I figured out that, once you can figure out your weaknesses, you can plan your way past them and have a playbook in your back pocket so that next time you can do better. At the end of the day, need is need. If you can meet people's needs, you can resolve the conflict and you can move on to the next situation. Make it simple. Don't start with no, and act on the need behind the need to move forward. The end. How are we going for time? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great comment. I mean, that's kind of that's part of my work story. I don't work alone. I can't do anything by myself. You need to engage with the people around you, and at least plan, formulate, and present a path out. Right? You can't just dig in and go, ah. I think you have to work with other people